Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. Pretty incredible movie, right? Should we give it another round of applause? It's my pleasure now to ask the co-director and co-writer of the film, Brendan BELLOMO, and the producer and co-writer, Paula DuPré Pesmen, to join me on stage. Hello, welcome, congratulations.
Thank you.
And joining us from afar, we are so lucky to have Slava and Anya.
And Frodo as well. Hi, Frodo. Hello.
And we get Frodo too, how fantastic. Slava and Anya, congratulations. Can you see everybody here if we all wave at you?
Yes, we can see you. What about Slava?
So can you tell us, Slava, where are Andrey and the Saigon team now?
Second team, my friends, now in fight near Kharkiv. Everyone in my unit survived. It's a miracle because after Battle of Bakhmut, they had two even more dangerous and terrible battle in Avdiivka and Kupiansk. They are really worn out, but they still ready to defend their people. Andrey is in Kharkiv. His family is in Luxembourg in safe, but Andrey still separated from his family, and it's a tragedy of millions Ukrainians family who broke it apart because of this war.
Well, you people are all so brave, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Anya, I know you're traveling now, but you're going to continue to live in Ukraine. Are you worried about anyone seeing this film? Are you worried about your future? Does having made this film make you worry even more about your future?
No, I don't know. Really don't know. About our future. No, no. Yes, for me, it's no problem. It's I don't think about it, really.
Kharkiv is under shelling every day and every night. And nobody is more in danger. We are in the same danger in Kharkiv, everyone, like 8 months babies who sometimes killed by these missile attacks.
Yeah, so everyone there is in danger all the time. That's a very fair point. Brendan, this movie did not start out this way. You found Slava and Anya by accident. Can you tell everybody the backstory?
One of our producers who worked with Paula on the film, Anya, grew up under Russian oppression, and she was born in communist Poland. She became a political refugee when her parents escaped to the United States. And they worked really hard to maintain a connection with their culture through music and art and through cinema. And about 8 years ago, she discovered Anya and Slava's figurines. And she was really moved by them because they reminded her of home. And she showed them to me. And I lit up. I had never seen something this beautiful before. It was a whole world. I couldn't understand how something so small had such big stories contained on it. And we began to work together on an animation project. And then Russia invaded. And I called up Slava and Anya and I asked them, are you guys safe? You know, are you okay? When are you leaving? And Slava said, we're going to stay and we'll keep making art at night. And I asked, why? What are you doing during the day? And he told me for the very first time, I am in the Ukrainian Special Forces and I'm teaching everyday peaceful people to pick up weapons. And this resistance that was occurring and their continued artistic creation was something that I think we were not seeing in the news, and Slava felt there was a missing part of the story. There was an important reporting that was happening, critical reporting, but there was another side to it, this story, this perspective of artists. So we worked together to empower them, to send cameras to them, to be able to tell their own story, right, in their words, in their vision, the way they see the world as artists. And we established really an impromptu film school over Zoom and through an interpreter, because at the time we were 6,000 miles apart. We did not speak the same language. Slava and Anya's English is amazing, but they were not able to communicate at all in English at the time. And so we thought there's something dividing us. We're not fluent, we're not able to directly communicate, but we were wrong. We began over Zoom to sketch, and these drawings, they became storyboards, and they became designs for shots and ideas, and we looked at paintings and sculptures that we loved, and we were fluent in visual arts. And in this way, we're able to work together so that they could learn how to capture everything that they showed you tonight on the screen.
Wow. Paula, you've made tough films before. You were a producer on The Cove. Tell me about getting cameras into Ukraine. Like, how does that even work?
It is funny because I didn't realize until today that this is another film with smuggling cameras. But yeah, it's in a different way. They needed the tools, and so we found a volunteer in New Jersey who's a makeup artist, and she was taking humanitarian aid 50 bags at a time, smuggling them through Poland into Ukraine, and she started taking the cameras and equipment through for us so that Brendan could teach them. And it just became like we really thought about this. They weren't becoming filmmakers, but they were becoming artists with new brushes. And so every tool that they got, they created something we hadn't even seen or expected with. They just brought their artistic eye to everything that they were shooting, and we were blown away. When we started getting the footage, it was just so beautiful and so humanizing for something that we had never seen before. This was not like what we had seen on the news. This was about really people living, and that was really refreshing and hopeful and empowering for them to be able to show you what their life is like living in a war zone.
But I mean, the footage is really, as you said, incredible. The nature shots, beautiful. Did you have to instruct them in some way on how to shoot, what to shoot? Like, if you gave me a camera, I would not be able to do that.
I think there was a lot of learning happening on the production, but it was not in the ways that you would expect. Slava was teaching civilians how to use weapons. I had never made a documentary before. Paula, was very lucky to have your wisdom and would not have been able to make this film without you. You're a veteran documentary filmmaker. And Slava and Andrey, their situation is incredible because they are already master visual storytellers, and Anya as well in her painting. So for them, it was learning to shift these instincts into a new medium. It wasn't about just looking at, okay, how do you use a lens, how do you focus, how do you record audio. We were speaking about the form of cinema, close-ups and wide shots, of editing and compound, panning, moving, roving cameras and lighting and all of these things. And Andrey, our cinematographer, he knows where to put his canvas. And Slava is a deeply metaphorical thinker. He understands how to use the visual language to tell a story. So for them, it was so intuitive. And what you saw on the screen in these opening scenes at the very beginning of this film, much of this is from roll one, from the first day that Andrey turned his camera on. So that is how strong their instincts were.
Wow, eventually you sent in, I don't know, 15 cameras, including
that's right.
GoPros, drones, yes. And you got 500 hours of footage. And obviously these two are, in addition to everything else they do, they're poets. Like, the way they speak to each other is so beautiful. Every line is like a line I wanted to write down. How did you shape this footage?
Well, first and foremost, the footage really was speaking to us, because while the first roll might have been the nature that was inspiring them and what they're trying to protect and what's giving them this sense of peace, the next was this destruction, what they're going through. And so there was an innate juxtaposition that we really wanted to follow in the cut. And so everything that came in, we cut, we assembled, we did rough cuts of every scene and really meditated on this. And so we followed the course of their lives, and you see this in the chronology of the film, month by month and season by season. And yet we also needed a structural component, because there were things that were very important to the story of Ukraine, but we could not film them, and yet Anya was sharing them through her work. their past in Crimea, this peaceful life that they used to have, what they were going through in the present. It was something that only her language could give us access to, because we don't have a time machine to bring a camera back, but the figurines, they can travel through time. And so that became a structural component of the film that really anchored us in the edit. And because this war is still ongoing and we don't know what's going to happen, only the Pegasus could share what their dreams are for the future and have a sense of resolution while still being in a very unknown and a terrible situation.
Yeah, Paula, I mean, one of the jobs of a producer is to keep your film crew safe. Obviously, that's a near impossible situation here. What kind of instructions did you give them in terms of, you know, especially when you begin then to also give the soldiers cameras, you know, how did you prioritize their safety versus the footage that you were getting?
Slava can also speak to this, but it was important to us that we stayed 3 months behind with any footage that we shared or we sent. It was very much protected to make sure that we wouldn't give away where people's locations were. And there is a concern, there's still a concern for everyone there. You know, you can't keep people safe in a war zone, but we could do everything we could to make sure that their locations were protected, their names and so forth. As far as Slava maybe can speak better about the unit and about, because there was concern, right? You're giving people cameras and they're supposed to be using their weapons.
And I can add just a brief bit before Slava adds. You know, when we were speaking with them about this, we were asking them, you know, how do you feel about filming? They said, if we can share what we're going through and really personally speak about it, maybe somebody else doesn't have to be in our position in the future. So it was a tremendous act of journalistic bravery for them to be able to share this, and we made sure that everything that we were saying, as Paul was talking about earlier, was also encrypted, was deeply firewalled, was also, you know, verified by fact checkers and journalists and, you know, Homeland Security and military consultants. So there was a very rigorous process, but it is their bravery that brought the footage here.
Well, Slava, tell us about, you know, you get these GoPros and drone cameras and you say to your comrades, you know, hey, Saigon Company, we're gonna strap on cameras and don't worry about it while you're in the middle of like, tell me what that was like on your end.
The first, not only a GoPro camera and drone need support of my unit, because I was serving in Ukrainian army at that time. And I was able to film something. I was able to work on Porcelain War only because my unit completely supported us. And when I picked up my camera, someone picked up a rifle in my place. My friends trusted us, and they thought it's so important to share our experience, because they just took these cameras and nobody was afraid because this work. They think now camera may be more powerful tool than rifle.
I would love to talk to all of you about how you decide what to show and what not to show, because there is that weird video game quality to drone warfare, right? You are looking at little figures moving around down below on the landscape. You know, there's a pretty harrowing shot of the bomb going into the tank, and you know there are people in that tank. Talk to us, all of you, about sort of the morality of what you were showing and not showing, and also how you sort of made sure that it wasn't, I don't know, some sort of propaganda or war recruitment tool. Do you know what I mean? Talk to me about the fine line of what to show and what not to show.
Well, I think there's two aspects to this. And first, Anya and Slava, if you guys want to talk about what you wanted to focus on filming, I think that's the first context, and then I can address the second half of your question.
Okay, please do.
So, yes, footage from front line is just unfiltered, and it's emotional truth. It's what it's a kind of experience. My friends share their experience on front line about what we filmed around us. We choose from the very beginning. Anya decided we will never be focused on destruction. We will never be focused on terrors of war. Animation gave us opportunity to tell about terrors of war without showing them like news does, because news gets old quickly, but beauty never. And we were focused on beauty. All destruction looks same, all war looks same. Much more important to show what may be destroyed. And we try to show beauty of our nature, understanding beauty of Ukrainian culture, and especially beauty of people who are ready to defend their culture, their families, their humans' uniqueness. And we really, we felt like people on the ground. We felt we are the eyes of our project, and we look around really attentively, because the war is time. In time of the war, all is very fragile. And we filmed every flower or butterfly or every girl like in the last day of their existence or last day of our existence. Because nobody knew who survived the next day or two.
And I think adding on a layer of this from our perspective, we wanted to empower them to tell their story, because there's a famous, renowned documentary filmmaker, and I'm paraphrasing broadly, but he said something to the effect of, you can have a film it can be like reading a telephone book. You know somebody's address, you know their name, you know their phone number, you understand the data about their life from the outside, but you don't know what they're feeling when they wake up in the morning. And I think emotional truths matter. Different perspectives matter. You need more than one perspective on a situation. This conflict, seeing it from within, from people who are peaceful, who are artists, who are in the situation, was absolutely critical. And I'm very humbled to share that we are one of the finalists for the DuPont Columbia Award in journalism, and I think that is due to their bravery as artists, as everyday people that were, courageous enough to share what they're going through in their own words.
I don't know if you want to address that question of just the morality of what to show and what not to show, Paula, and also the idea of, you don't want any anti-war film to suddenly somehow become a pro-battle film, right? So that's a thing you have to keep an eye on, I would imagine.
100%. I think in terms of what to show and what not to show, it's a fine line in a sense, because as Slava was talking about earlier, they just want to live peaceful lives. Everybody in Saigon, they want to go back to their regular lives. And Andrey and Anya and Slava, their focus, their drive is to preserve their lives, to live a peaceful life. And yet, they're forced in a situation where they can't look away from what's happening. They don't have any other choice but to fight. Otherwise, their culture is lost, their family is lost, their country is lost. And so, turning this camera on, and this is the situation that they're in. They're in Bakhmut. This is what's happening. And then to share their thoughts about that gave a natural sense of balance. But that said, there is a natural restraint, because as Anya, quoting her, she said, all destruction looks the same. So you don't need to look at this and look at this and look at this. It's to focus on what might be lost, what you're defending. And that was really the goal in striking this balance.
Anya, I'd love to hear your thoughts about placing your figurines within the rubble and what that felt like for you, why that was important to you.
Because
Oops, let me figure in the room.
maybe maybe contrast, maybe it's beautiful because I feel it like something beautiful because it's my work from porcelain which still alive on this ruins. It's so it's something about it's possible to destroy this building, but they not possible destroy my my work, my world, which live in my drawing.
Did your drawings change during the course of the war? Have they changed?
No, my story, which I painting on our figurines, they don't change it, because all my life I interested by death and life, night and day, like all artists which work. Sorry. Sorry.
This is a common challenge while we were working. We're used to it.
I blame the dog.
So, yes. So all artists interested by all life, yes, about death and life, about night and day, and when war coming, nothing changing. And I think about war don't. War is not something super new. It's terrible, but it not new in history of human. Yes, and I think this kind of war, this Russian war, these Russian soldiers, they don't come in inside my world, inside my painting, because it's my world. I must to keep my borders, and it's not so difficult like to keep Kharkiv to Slava's unit.
Wow. Again, very admirable. Tell us about the process of animating the figurines, because it's so seamlessly done.
Well, Anya created these 3 figurines specifically to explain emotionally what they were going through at this time, to be this record of their experiences. And we ended up working with a collective of animators in Poland, and they felt a deep kinship with Ukraine. They worked for over a year. They studied 20 years of Anya's work, photographs of her painting, of her style, so that any, even the antenna of a little snail could be exactly the way her brushstroke would look. And they animated 7,000 hand-drawn frames. And that is what you saw on the surface of this porcelain tonight.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm going to open it up to your questions in a minute, but I would love to ask, maybe Slava, this is a hard question to answer, but you're a poet, you're an artist, your friends are teachers and farmers and IT experts. What happens in your heart as you're teaching these civilians how to defend themselves, how to use weapons? Like, what story do you tell yourself to be able to do the work that you do?
We have no choice, because the war is it's right outside our door. We cannot choose fight or not to fight. We must defend our families or survive. Nobody will fight instead of us. Because all these boring skills are necessary. And when I taught civilians how to fight, I felt hope. Probably I able to do this not so bad. And I really can help these people to survive and help his family to survive. Of course, I worry about this. Am I really good teacher or not? Only this.
What do your students say to you most often? Like, what do you hear from them when they're learning how to use these weapons? Are they admitting to you their fear? Are they very courageous? Like, what do they say to you?
Sometime I can explain how it began. Since first days of war, to our army came thousands and thousands of civilian volunteers. They never used weapon before. It was terrible and very dangerous time when regular people took this AK-74 and you know how dangerous weapon is. And these people was in our subway, and I drive from one station to other station and explain their commander, if you need teacher for safety with weapon, I'm here. These people was grateful because they start to understood something, what they can or cannot do. But after time, I met many our soldiers with really big experience in fight, who was grateful because nobody taught they how to shoot and hit enough. Anyway we can we have opportunity to make our preparation better. This war is really hard and long and dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think the film does an incredible job of making people think, okay, we're here in Toronto and there's suddenly bombs shelling our buildings and we all go run and take shelter in the subway. And then someone comes along and says, you have to learn how to use these guns and defend yourselves. Like, it is an incredible way of bringing everything that these people are going through home and in a very lucid and discernible way. Who has a question in the audience? We do have a mic, but you can also shout it out. Yes, in the back?
Appreciate the commentary in English. Now I'm going to say a few words in Ukrainian to the people and ask them to respond in Ukrainian to us. I'm going to ask them to explain what they would like to tell us, for most of us here who speak Ukrainian and would like to hear it in Ukrainian about the film. Дорогі Слава і Аню, скажіть своєю мовою нам, тим людям, які тут по-українськи розуміють, що ви би хотіли розказати нам коротко про фільм і що ви би хотіли цей фільм, щоб цей фільм здобув тут на Заході. Дякую.
Thank you so much. Я дуже вдячний вам за це питання. Я сподіваюся, що ми були здатні принести людям надію і натхнення. Я сподіваюся, що головний меседж нашого фільму – зло існує, і воно насувається просто зараз, щоб знищити наш світ. Але добра новина полягає в тому, що звичайні люди, звичайні мирні люди бажають і здатні захищати свої домівки, свої оселі, свою культуру, захищати свою свободу і свою українську ідентичність. І ці люди потребують вашої допомоги. Потребують її тут і потребують її зараз. Тому що наше майбутнє і майбутнє світу залежить від кожного. Це не лише про Україну і про українців, це про кожного з нас, хто готовий та здатний стояти за свободу. I repeat in English because maybe it's really important. I think the main message of our movie is about evil exists. Evil exists and it's moving right now to destroy our world. But resistance is possible. And regular people ready to defend their human diversity, their freedom, and their humanity. They need your help here, and they need it now because the future depends on all of us.
Yes, Slava, I know you've said that, help us while we're still here, which I think is a very powerful and chilling thought. What can we do? What can those of us in the audience here tonight do? What can we in North America do?
Please share the story. I think it's important for people to understand a perspective that they maybe haven't seen in the news. There are certainly resources on porcelainwar.com where, if you feel motivated to get involved, there's amazing organizations there. And I think, it's just about, looking at where we are in the world right now. Democracy is under threat now more than ever. And the comprehension that what's happening in Ukraine, and by extension the story of this film, is not merely about Ukraine. It affects all of us. You have other authoritarian nations like China that are watching the outcome of this war. If Russia wins there, it might embolden them to attack Taiwan, where they have their sights set. And so other democracies are truly also in the crossfire, in the extension of the result of this war.
And I'm sure Slava would like to add to this too, but we do have a website, porcelainwar.com. We are keeping track of all the new cities that the film is opening up. Please follow us. Follow us on social, and then follow us on our website. If you see a city where you know somebody is there, please tell them. We need help. We need word of mouth. We need you to help spread the word.
Makes such a huge difference.
It does humanize this issue for people, and it's important that we see this in this, humanity at risk.
Slava, are there particular...
Would you repeat the website? We didn't hear it.
Porcelainwar.com.
Just that.
Yes.
Slava, on the ground, what are some organizations that people might be able to donate to? What do you see on the ground? Where do you see help coming through?
Oh, we really have the best contact of best foundation on our site, and we in Ukraine, everyone can feel and appreciate this help. It's very important for us, and it's really important to share our story, because many Ukrainians are inspired by this film, and I hope we bring to audience here in Toronto kind of hope and inspiration. Please share information about our film, because usually people afraid to watch movie about the war, because war is terrible and disgusting, and nobody wants to be sad. But we never have helped evil to depress people and make people sad. We tried to bring inspiration and hope and beauty.
I'm sure no one here is a stranger at keeping pressure on your local governments too, and your federal government, so I wouldn't be shy about keeping that up. Anybody else have a question? Yes?
Добрий вечір чи добрий ранок. Я не знаю, то вже 4 година, чи ж там у вас так. Хотіла знати, я за пару тижнів вертаюся в Україну, напевно, буду в Харкові. Хотіла знати, чи є щось, що я можу вам привезти, чи або якісь фарби, чи пензі, чи щось з Канади, що там важко дістати, бо я знаю, що в Харкові зараз нелегко дістати речі для мистецтва, щоб ви могли продовжувати ваше мистецтво.
Ми зараз знаходимося у США і продовжуємо супроводжувати наш фільм. І через це ми навіть практично не маємо часу займатися порцеляном. Але я сподіваюся, що ви зможете щось привезти для підтримки наших шпиталів або для підтримки наших військових. Іноді якісь смішні дрібнички виявляються надважливими. Дякую вам дуже. Thank you so much.
How many people in this audience do not speak Ukrainian? Do you mind just giving us the gist of that?
Sorry, I was just saying that I will be returning to Ukraine. I'm a volunteer who's been going back and forth, and I was just asking because I know that in Kharkiv sometimes it's difficult to purchase certain items. So if there was something that I could bring from Canada, art-wise, along with my humanitarian aid that I'm bringing, but for them to continue to produce their beautiful, beautiful artwork. And the answer was that thank you, but we are focusing on the promotion of this film at the moment, and they're not working on the artwork specifically. So to just continue to do the deliveries of the medical aid and for the soldiers and so on.
Oh, thanks. It was a great thought, though, to, coming, what you can bring. Yes, in the back.
I just wanted to bring up the point that I know that this film is partnered with Razom in the US, which is a fantastic resource for anyone who's in the audience and wondering how they can help. An equivalent to that in Canada is called the Canada-Ukraine Foundation. They have a humanitarian appeal that is fundraising for Ukraine right now, for Ukraine. And so I just wanted to make the point for anyone, if you took the message of how do you help, please check in with your local Ukrainian community. As you can see, there are many of us in the audience tonight, and many of them will have suggestions on where and who to talk to in order to do that. So just wanted to pass that along. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Yes, here.
I wanted to just ask about challenges. What are the main challenges that you are facing? I know the war is a challenge by itself, but like you mentioned, the cameras, anything else that you wanted to mention?
It's a long list of enormous challenges. I think, the initial concept that we felt that there was a barrier of communication was really difficult. And as we really systematically broke that down through communicating through drawings and working with interpreters, we started to be able to feel closer and closer. But there were so many people who worked very hard to create a transparency in the language. We had many translators, 12 in total, and a linguist, an expert. They really worked to make sure the subtitles were very transparent, not in a literal sense, but in poetry, in making sure idiomatic expressions and musicality were really maintained. And so at every level of production this was going on. With the sound, there was so many challenges of how do you do this? If you might think, okay, there's a microphone on the camera, this is fine. But for me and for Slava, the soundscape of the film was extremely critical. So we sent a lot of audio recording equipment so that when you hear crickets or birds, these are from Ukraine. When you hear these explosions, these are from their neighborhood in Kharkiv. So authenticity and maintaining that. But it's not just like you're on a set or you have a crew there. Everything they recorded, they needed to have internet access. They needed to have power in order to upload this. Starlink needed to be working. And they were doing this in the middle of active missions. So every single thing that you take for granted on a normal documentary or a different type of film, for this, it was 10 times as difficult. And yet they still did that. So it was just at every level of the production. And it was a lot of bravery and a lot of tenacity to make this happen.
I also want to ask you about beauty. You know, there are some shots in this movie that are just staggeringly beautiful and also just heart-stopping. I'm thinking particularly about the sunflower field that then becomes the graveyard, and then you pan beyond that to open graves, waiting graves. Talk to me about that. That juxtaposition of, you know, sort of beauty and you know, really just heart-wrenching reality.
I mean, I think I'll speak about this in a different sense than we have in the past. For context, this contrast, this juxtaposition is innate, right? You have this incredibly beautiful country, you have very peaceful people, creative people that are really focused on aesthetics that bring them deep joy. And so when anything intrudes in this, a landmine in the forest, a destroyed building, there is a contrast. But the other aspect of this, when you look at it from the editing standpoint, one cannot exist without the other. If everything is loud, if everything is destroyed, you are anesthetized to this. So only by bringing these things into conversation in the right balance can you truly appreciate all of the emotional range that they're going through. And this is not just despair, it's the joy of being able to create artistic resistance and to create something new that is beautiful.
Paula, you know, Slava has said that, you know, the genius of an enemy like Russia is that they know how to use your own strengths as a people against you. You know, the fact that the Ukrainian people are artistic, that they are peaceful. What did you learn about Ukrainian people making this, and you know, what do you see, what in your film that you feel is like very true to the nature of Ukrainian people?
The hope, the resilience, using creativity actually as a strength, as a way to connect with other people and to inspire. There's not a day of knowing, since I've met them, there's not a day that I don't feel inspired and hopeful. And there are hard days for us to try to finish the film, get the film out, try to get it to where you can see it in a theater, all of these things that are not hard, like what they're going through in Ukraine. But what they taught us and showed us was this beautiful spirit that they have. And we talk about the spirit of Frodo, same, right? And the spirit of Slava and Anya and Andrey. They just continue to get up every day and have this positivity and this hope. And they do see the beauty in everything around them. It's something that all of us could do more of. And they've taught me that for sure. I mean, we drove away from an airport and they were talking about the trees. And I said, what trees? And they're like, the trees at the airport. I didn't see the trees at the airport. Now I do. You know, there's just simple things in life that are just, they're all around us. And they see them. And I think that that is a really beautiful, inspiring thing that they've shared. And through the film, through their work, they're sharing with you.
Anybody else have a question? Yes, in the center, in the back. And then I see you, sir, too. Here you come.
Thank you. You mentioned that sound is very important and that you had to vary the sound. One of the other things that's very important in a film is music. And you use tacha-bracha, which has a very distinctive sound. So can you tell me how you came to the decision to use their music and to have them work with you on this?
There was really no other choice. I asked Slava, we were all discussing, what do you love? What music do you love? And he said, there's this band, Andrey listens to them while he paints, we love them, and he played for me Vesna, the song that opens the film, the song that closes the film in the musical performance, and I was transported. That was it. I started to cut different scenes to one tacha-bracha song, and then another, and another. Entire edit, the entire assembly became tacha-bracha. There's no way you could do this with a composer because no one else would understand the cultural texture and the heartbeat of this film, and it influenced the rhythm of this. But I went to Paula and Anya and I said, well, what can we do? Because this film, it has to have this music, but we were just cutting to that at the beginning.
And then Anya and I started to panic because we realized the entire film was being cut to this music and we didn't know how to find them, and they were never stopping. They travel every day somewhere else and keep performing. So we became big fans and we stalked them as much as we could.
It
We
was
actually bought tickets
frightening.
to one of their shows and we were gonna hold up a sign saying, "Call us," with our phone number. And 2 days before that, we got a response. And Anya and I got a 6 a.m. Zoom, and the manager popped onto the screen, and she was in tears. And she said she was in Kyiv, been shelling all night around her building, and we told her what we were doing and how much we loved their music, and it was such a part of the soul of the film. And she said, "We're sending you all of it. You can have the library, anything that's unreleased, you can have it all. And we will donate whatever you give us to help musicians and their families who are soldiers, who are fighting." So that's what they did with the funds we gave them for the licensing. And we've had a few times where we've seen them around the country in the States, and Slava and Anya recently got to meet them as well and bring them some art.
Oh, incredible. I think we have time for one more, and I think there was a hand up down here. Yep.
My question was exactly about DACA.
Oh, DACA. Well, yeah, you have to see the film again so you can watch the full closing credits sequence and listen to that song.
Yeah, I really wanted to know, how integral it was. It's just part of it. So it's good to hear you.
Okay, sorry, there's a gentleman here who we're going to give the last question to, sir, so make it a really good one.
This film, in a beautifully artistic manner, presents a very important message to the world and speaks the truth about what is happening in Ukraine. Чудово представлено дійсність і що потрібно передати світові. My question is, have you met resistance because there are so many forces of disinformation in the world? Has there been resistance? Have you been able to get the cooperation of the industry and generally to promote the movie and to get it the attention that it deserves?
Everyone caught that right. Has there been resistance to the film?
This is a very interesting question. I mean, I think the feeling in this room tonight is emblematic, reflective of our experience sharing it across the United States in film festivals, internationally in film festivals. It's had a deep resonance with people who are very familiar with the situation and with people who have said, wow, I didn't understand it in this way. And so I think when people are able to see the film, there has been a transparency. And at the same time, we're also, very, very lucky to now be sharing it theatrically, and we're continuing to work towards hopefully finding streaming so that people can see the film everywhere. So your participation and getting the word out, it really makes a difference in continuing to allow people to experience these perspectives.
Yeah. Remember, it opens here in the Lightbox December 6th. Slava and Anya, we can't thank you enough. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your art.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Brendan and Paula, for bringing us their story. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this conversation. Thank you all for
Thanks
coming.
to all of you.